Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, I'm Patrick Donohoe, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. 6 months on after pay scandals rocked the IFA, the association has a new president. For his first interview in his new job on Tuesday night, Joe Healy spoke with the Irish Farmers Journal news correspondent Pat O'Toole.
The outcome today has strongly mirrored the Red Sea poll, which was right at the beginning of the hustings. And it feels like you pulled together a group of diverse constituencies within Irish farming to form a very strong campaign. Tell me how that all came together, because it came together quite quickly for you, didn't it, once you announced your candidacy?
It did, and the bottom line is that probably 4 months and a week ago I had absolutely no intention or no idea that I'd be in a campaign. I finished milking one evening to just rushing to get into the Galway County Executive with 2 items in mind. One to discuss the Conlucia report, and the other one was to ratify another Galway man who had put himself forward to be the Galway candidate for the IFA presidency. And in the course of the meeting it transpired that he had pulled out, and I just happened at the end of the night to be nominated, and I was sitting at the back of the room and I was nodding up at the chairman, no, because I had no thought put into it. So in his wisdom he said to take 2 weeks over Christmas to think about it, and that's what we did. It involved a few good friends, family members and other people that we'd have a lot of respect for, and ended up entering the race. So from the 8th of January on, it was gung-ho, and thankfully, and I'd be always grateful to the other 5 county chairmen that nominated me, as well as Galway's. So got into the race, got a team together, brilliant team. The amount of work, time, effort that they put in a very busy time of the year. There's no need to tell anyone that has any links with farming about the springtime. And and all those farmers are under pressure financially as well. So in many cases, whether it was to get in a relief milker or even a loss that they might have incurred as a result of being on the road, they sacrificed a lot. I hope, and I'm sure that today has made it all worthwhile for them, but it still doesn't take away from the sacrifice that they made, and one that I'll be eternally grateful to them for. So, but my father always said, if you go at anything, give it your heart and soul, and whatever the outcome, it just makes it easier to accept it, and that's exactly what we did. I wasn't confident, I wasn't cocky, or I wasn't one bit nervous last night, yesterday, last week, this morning, because I just felt there was no more we could have given it, and whatever would be, and I think it proved that we did put a lot of work into, because we took no vote for granted. It was 9:05 last Thursday night when I got off the phone to someone in Roscommon, because their meetings didn't start until 9 o'clock, and I just got them going in the door to the meeting. Whether it swung the vote or not, I don't know. I don't care at this stage either. But that's what we put into it, and it's great when you do put in the effort to see the outcome for it. But in fairness, I suppose it's only now the real work starts.
Well, anyone who shears sheep is not afraid of work. We know that much. Through the campaign and coming in, probably one of the things that would have weighed on you is that you're carrying the burden of the expectancy of the people who are supporting you. You carry that on now. We both sat in Meath and we heard the words of Tom Clinton. I'm sure you remember them, because it was one of the more measured contributions in those 25 hustings, and he talked about the burden of the presidency, the loneliness of the presidency. Having said that, I know you a long time, and you're someone who likes to do things by consensus and likes to work as part of a team. Is that going to be the theme of your presidency, like teamwork and getting a consensus on issues and then bringing them on?
It has to be. You have to bring the membership along with you, and when the result was announced, I immediately thought of the Pope in the Room of Tears, where he gets the few moments to just consider kind of the emotion and the enormity of the task ahead as well. Because it's an enormous task ahead, and no one person, whether they're president or whoever they are, would deliver all that needs to be worked on and delivered for Irish farmers. It's probably, maybe every president says this, but I think it has to be one of the toughest times ever in my memory for Irish farmers, because we've just put through a very difficult spring. We see all the major commodity areas sell at below the cost of production. Back the years, there was a kind of a feeling that, there's money from Brussels. That doesn't seem that it's going to increase anytime soon, There's global downward pressure on some of the commodities. Some other commodities, maybe there's solutions closer to home. And I think then, if we look at the other side of it on inputs, and the IFPRI report that G carried a few weeks ago on the fertiliser, we need to get movement on that. It's one thing having a report there. I remember at the IFA 60th in Dublin last January, 12 months, Commissioner Hogan making a big play on the fertiliser and the need to tackle it. Now we have a report to back up. If you want, we have the science behind it now to back up kind of the absolute amount of money that's been put out of farmers' pockets over the anti-dumping tariffs and the import duties. So, I think it's somewhere between 40 and 50 euro a tonne on average that we could be getting our fertiliser cheaper. Fertiliser is a huge expense on most farms, and I suppose most especially on dairy and tillage farms, but all farmers use fertiliser. So we need to get movement on that as well. And we also need to ensure that our co-ops and our processors and our factories do whatever is required to ensure that a reasonable and a fair return from the marketplace is passed back to the farmer.
That work starts in the morning, as I understand it. IFA are sending a delegation to meet Glanbia to discuss milk price and where that goes. There are some big macro issues, three in particular, I suppose, the Mercosur and TTIP trade negotiations and Brexit. While we can't really have an opinion on Brexit, the clock is ticking. We've 2 months to go. Are you going to put a sharp focus on those issues?
Well, you mentioned Brexit there, and and I think you intimated that maybe Irish farmers doesn't realise the full impact of it, but it's one of the questions that came up quite often in the hustings. And while as farmers we mightn't appreciate the full extent of the problems associated with it, but farmers around Ireland are very aware of the potential problems, and we obviously can't influence it in any great detail, but we need to kind of highlight that as well, and maybe highlight the idea that the UK would probably have to pay some sort of a duty to deal with Europe. But I think above all, if there is to be a Brexit, we as Irish farmers and Ireland as a country needs to just fight for maybe a favourable treatment in relation to the historic arrangements and relationships that has been there between both countries, down through the years. You mentioned Mercosur and TTIP, and I think it's beholding on IFA and indeed the government and the European Commission to ensure that European farmers are safeguarded against any world trade deals, and that agriculture isn't seen as the sacrificial lamb in any of those deals.
You've worn many hats over the years, while always being a very active farmer. One that you're very well known for, and that puts you in most farm families' kitchens on a Tuesday, is your column in the Farming Independent, where you are reporting on factory and market prices. That gives you maybe a detachment that most farmers don't have, and also a deep insight into the dynamics around prices, especially with the relationship between farmers and processors. You've been critical during the campaign of IFA's performance in relation to achieving a better beef price in recent years. Is that something high on your agenda?
Absolutely, Pat, and it has to be. We've a huge amount of beef suckler farmers, beef finishers in this country, and they've just kind of gone through a very difficult year. They've seen the gap between the animal here and a similar animal in the UK open up to 300 euros or 82 cents a kilo. They have farmers, and really, whether it was on the campaign or whether it's doing the article every Tuesday for the Farming Independent, that article always reflected, as far as I was concerned, the mood of the farmer on the ground. And the mood was very disappointing, disillusioned with the sector, and denied that they were taking so little, and yet they could see their processors constantly appear on the rich list, and there was just a feeling amongst them that they weren't getting their fair share from the marketplace. At the same time, the processors and the retailers were showing huge profits and increasing profits. So all they want is a margin. We're producing a top quality product that's fit to put on any shelf anywhere in the world, as good as any country can produce it. and not getting paid for it. We're passing every sort of quality standards. And those inspections, and you were at a lot of the hustings, came up quite regularly as well. Farmers don't mind inspections, but what we need is a certain amount of common sense, a common sense approach.
Meanwhile, I sat down with the IFA's new Deputy President, Richard Kennedy of Limerick.
Richard Kennedy, dairy farmer, County Limerick, and we can add IFA Deputy President to that list. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm delighted now. I'm delighted to have achieved this position. I wanted to be involved in the serious issues that confront IFA in the near future, that are there at the present. And I felt that the only thing I could do when I saw the problems that were there was to put up my hand and see where it would take me. And it has, because I wanted to be involved.
You were on the outside. You hadn't been, I suppose, actively involved in IFA since 2009. You were involved in community groups and whatnot. But why now?
Well, I was always an IFA man. I'm an IFA man to the core. And I have always taken an interest in IFA. I take a serious pride in IFA. I look on the people that I was involved with. I look back at the likes of T.J. Marr, and I look back at Paddy Fitz in Limerick. I look back on Joe Ray. I look back at Donny Cashman. And those kind of guys that I was involved in when I was in Mockra now, and I had close contact with them. And I know what effort they put into IFA, to NFA at that time, and in IFA. And I'm just a proud IFA man, that's it. And I'm not going to have it let it be said that I wouldn't do my bit, and that's it.
And I suppose, again, creep up on the outside, you maybe weren't as charismatic as Nigel Renahan, or maybe as well known as a Pat Farrell. But what do you think? Because when you look at the map of where you came, there was a split down the west, kind of northwest to southeast, and Richard Kennedy had the most of those. What was your appeal?
Look, I went into this campaign. I went in with no baggage, and I walked out with no baggage. I fought the campaign. I put out my policies. I said the kind of a guy I was, and I left it to the people to decide in. And look, I can't. Look, it's up to the people to vote for me to answer that question, really. But what I wanted was people would understand where I was coming from. If I thought I was good enough then, that they'd vote for me. That was it.
And talk me through what your plan is and what you see as being the Deputy President role.
Well, the first thing is to support the President. I have obviously to support the President, and that's important. There are a lot of decisions now in IFA that have to be made in IFA. I mean, one of the first ones will be a new chief executive. That will be very important. I have, over the last 3 weeks, when I was particularly talking to people at branch level, and people maybe not just ordinary members, I was reminded several times, nearly everyone, to man and woman, that you want to get out and meet the members, understand talk to the members, and bring them, let the members know what's going on, and represent what the members are thinking. And I think that is very important to me, and that's what I intend to do. That we have to get back down to where we have a very good branch structure in IFA, and we'd be in a danger of losing it if we don't operate at ground level. And I think that's what I look forward to, really. And I like meeting farmers and farm families. And okay, we're not going to be able to solve every problem, but at least we must give people that they feel that they're part of something.
Have you any concerns, and in your hustings you went on about rebuilding trust, and trust was what we had to rebuild. Have you any concerns that trust may be broken after what has happened in the last?
Not entirely, I think, but trust has taken a very big hammering. And I think we need to bring that back, and we need to bring back credibility. One of the things that I would have seen through my involvement in IFA for over a long number of years, and I had a big involvement, and I always felt like that. Okay, you say I wasn't that involved since 2009, but my attitude about this is you go in, you do your work, and you move on, and you might find something else to go, and you can't be taking up a position in IFA. It's not a lifelong organisation, it's not a sentence, and that was my attitude about it. But in getting back trust, you have to earn it, and the credibility side. One of the things I saw was when I was seriously involved in IFA was if I had a farmer with a problem, or I had a problem myself, and I went on representation to whether the Department of Agriculture, to the co-op or to the bank, wherever it was, no matter how much the people at the other side of the table might dislike IFA, they had to respect the organisation. And I thought that was gone. I won't say it's gone, but it certainly had been badly hurt. And that's what I want to get back. That's the thing, and that was what I spoke about there tonight. I've seen IFA deliver for individual farmers that had no other way of, and they delivered on the basis that IFA had carried a lot of weight. If you had a good case, in the main you could solve it. And
finally, a good day for IFA, but a better day for Mockra, maybe.
Well, look, that's I'm proud of my involvement in Macra. Macra made me what I am. There's no question about that. The IFA might have developed it up along the line, but everything that I tried when I started off in IFA after being finished in Macra, all those skills, whatever I have, came from Macra, and I developed them on as I went along. But I mean, of course, I'm proud of and I hope that the Macra members today are proud of Joe Healy and myself as two Macra presidents that moved on along.
And finally, looking back in 2 or 4 years, whenever they may, what do you want the deputy presidency of Fitzgerald Kennedy to be remembered for?
Well, the biggest thing, I hope we have the trust restored. I think that is it. And the biggest thing of all, and the big is, as well as that, is people will say, look, he went in there, he did his best, and that's really what it is. It's about doing my best, and I hope it's good enough.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Last week, Cavan farmer Charles Clarke hosted the last spring farm walk in the Dairylink programme. First, I asked our dairy specialist Aidan Brennan to analyse the farm's performance. The Irish Farmers Journal's dairy editor Jack Kennedy then interviewed Charles himself.
He's a highly stocked farm. He's 3.5 cows per hectare. He's growing 11.5 tonnes of grass per hectare per year. It's based in Astra. So I mean, yeah, relative to the amount of grass he's growing, he is highly stocked. He's feeding 750 kilos of meal per cow last year, which is not excessive.
Where does that compare now with other cows?
It's actually less than the national average. I think the national average is around 800 kilos. So I mean, he's actually performing quite well. There is scope to reduce the amount of meal he's feeding. That's going to depend on how much grass, more grass he can grow. I mean, we've identified increasing grass growth as a key area for the farm. Average, as I said, is 11.8 tonnes last year. You know, potential to bring that up to 14, 15 tonnes in time. I mean,
is that all with the NPs and Ks?
Yeah, soil fertility is a key issue. Lime, especially. I mean, we've at the farm walk we went through, and there's 13% of the farm area is underperforming in one or a number of different areas. So these need to be addressed.
Charles, how are the cows milking at the moment?
23.5 litres. The fat and protein is not great. The cows have been in the shed for the last while, so I suppose it's put them under a bit of pressure.
Yeah. Okay, how's the spring gone for you? How was, in terms of grazing, how's the spring gone for you?
The spring's gone well, relatively well, despite the weather was bad. I had lots of grass starting off, my cover was high, so I got about the 11th of February, and grazing went well up till the end of February. I was in for a few days at the start of March, back out again. I was on off up till then. On off till about the 11th of March, and then went out full time from the 11th on. And it went well. Look at March, there was some good weather in March, there was good weather at the end of February.
Okay.
In between the bits of obviously the conditions were bad starting off. There was a lot of rainfall over the winter, so it was a lot of the soil was saturated starting off.
In terms of feed, the cows are on at the moment now, I suppose, and is it full-time grass now at this stage?
Full-time grass now, yeah. And about 2 kilos of meal. I have lots of grass. While it's still cold, hopefully the conditions will improve next week.
What kind of growth rates have you got recently?
25 to 30. 30 was a day, so that's not too bad considering all. You know.
In terms of the vision for the business, Charles, like I mean, you've increased cow numbers slightly this year, and the plan is to increase them again up to maybe 115 cows over the next number of years. What's kind of driving that decision in terms of increasing slightly in terms of cow numbers?
I suppose the increased output, it'll bring output up to a stable level, to a level where hopefully it'll be sustainable, because that's the important thing. There's no point in jumping up and down. For the future, to try and improve the thing, I suppose, improve the cow type, cut out the poor performers. Up to now, I was expanding a little bit every year, and probably not enough replacements. So I was always holding on to cows that I probably shouldn't have. So I have a lot of replacements. I have 31 replacements. I have an opportunity to get rid of them now. So no, that'd be the main focus. The focus on the fertility of the land, improve it, and the cow, try and improve the production without increasing the meal. So that's
okay. I mean, it's a one-man show here, Charles, that you're running with a little bit of relief help kind of in the springtime and the back end. Yeah,
so it's a one-man show. It's a bit of relief milking and a bit of help in the spring and whenever else is needed, you know. But it's a one-man show, which 115 cows isn't easy now. It's a lot of work, and there is a bit of other cattle as well. So long term, whether that's sustainable or not, I'm not so sure. But when you're at this stage, it's fine.
Are you positive overall in terms of the plan that you have for your business? Are you positive that you can deliver?
Oh no, I'm positive. I'm positive in general. I suppose as a general outlook in life, it's always better to be positive.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Odile Evans continues her series of reports on locally led agri-environmental schemes in this week's Irish Farmers Journal. While researching the project involving the conservation of the hen harrier habitats, she met Liam O'Keefe, the chairman of the Irish Farmers with Designated Land Group.
From a farmer point of view, we just hope that it will be successful for the farmer and the hen harrier, I suppose, really, because it's not going to follow on with other schemes if that doesn't happen. I suppose one of the main problems that seems to be there is the predators actually taking hen harrier eggs or young birds out of the ground, foxes and grey crows and magpies and stuff like that. So I just would imagine that would have to be part of this scheme, is controlling the predators.
Do you think it will come down like a last scheme, or do you think it's going to have to be more?
We've been told that it would be a similar payment. And I'd imagine the payment would be similar, but I'd imagine it would be much more focused on predator control, increasing small bird population, and I suppose there'd be a certain amount of management of ground and in different ways. But I suppose the fact is locally led. Every hill is different. That's the only thing. You can't just draw a line and say. I suppose schemes in the past would have been very much done in the department. This is it now, it doesn't matter what kind of land you have, this is the way you do it. Whereas we'd be hoping there'd be a bit more flexibility in this.
You're not just approaching this in the sense that you want a payment because your land is devalued. You're also kind of looking at it has to benefit the hen harrier or whatever we do.
Farmers need to be able to derive an income off the land. If they can't, they'll leave the land. And if there'll be no farm, there'll be no hen harrier. That's the way it works. The hen harrier won't survive if land is abandoned and there's no land topped and grazed, and there's no. But basically, the cows will make a dung, and there'll be bees in the dung, and the small birds will feed off the bees, and the big bird will come in and eat the small bird. That's the cycle.
Food chain,
yeah. So, if you'll break the cycle, it's not going to work. It's hard to change people's thinking and to get people back and to say, look, try to swing around and be positive about a scheme coming out. And so look, there's mixed feelings out there on the whole thing. If the money is too low, there's no point in running a scheme at all. Yeah. Because if no one's going to gain out of it, the bird, if the farmer won't gain, he won't do the work, and the bird won't gain. Yeah. It's a vicious circle. Yeah. So look, we did get a promise of money that if it came, I think most of us would be happy enough. There's 3,860 farmers affected by the designation. The gloss is supposed to cover the farmers for the first 19 hectares. But the problem that came up is, just say a farmer had 19 hectares designated and he was cutting silage off for 6 acres at that. He couldn't put that 6 acres in, he couldn't draw his gloss on that 6 hectares. Yeah. So he'd be hoping to get in under the locally led to claim the money on the 6.
On the other 6, yeah. Because you can't run them side by side.
No, you can't run them on the same ground. So it's very much up in the air to know how many farmers will be going to the scheme.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Irish Country Living's careers editor Mary Phelan revealed a few weeks back that the Department of Agriculture was about to offer 200 jobs this year. Some of them have just opened for applications, and Mary takes Áine Hennessy through the details and the requirements of those positions.
Hi, I'm Áine Hennessy and I'm here with Country Living career editor Mary Phelan, who has this week written about jobs in the Department of Agriculture. Mary, tell us more.
So Áine, these jobs are highly anticipated. I would say that the most popular stand at the Agri Careers Fair was the Department of Agriculture stand. It seems that everybody wants to work there. You know, the jobs in there are perceived to be stable, permanent public sector jobs. And now the great news is that some of the 200 roles that the department have said are coming on stream in 2016 are now live on publicjobs.ie.
And what are these roles, Mary?
So the roles that have just gone live on publicjobs.ie for the department are technical agricultural officer roles. So the people who get these jobs will be carrying out various functions related to services and schemes operated by the department, as well as operating controls that are in relation to public health, animal welfare, animal health and general EU schemes. So those who are working in this job jobs, they may be working in places in meat plants, or they could be based outdoors doing farm inspections as well, which is, I think, what people would know these jobs most for, the farm inspections.
So Mary, what must you have to apply for these jobs?
So candidates must at the very minimum have received a D grade in at least 5 subjects in the Leaving Cert, which include maths and English, and they must also hold a level 6 advanced certificate in agriculture or horticulture, or a level 7 qualification in agriculture or horticulture. And the department have also noted that while it's not essential, it's very desirable that candidates would also have a full clean driving licence.
And where are these jobs located, Mary?
So these jobs are all over the country, and in fact on the application form candidates can put down their top 3 preferred locations, and while vacancies might not always necessarily arise in those particular locations, where possible the department will assign candidates to their chosen locations, and a panel is being formed from successful applicants, and people then will be assigned to jobs as vacancies arise.
So when's the deadline for applications?
So the deadline is midnight on Thursday the 5th of May. Make sure you get organised, make sure you put a very decent application together. These jobs, I cannot stress how popular these jobs will be, so make sure you give yourself the best chance of getting them.
Mary, there are also jobs with Fullwood Paco at the moment, right?
Yeah, so Fullwood Paco is also recruiting at the moment. They are a dairy equipment manufacturer. Their head office is based in Cork, and they are looking for technicians and dealers. For the technicians, they're looking for someone with an electrical, electronic or engineering qualification, and while experience working on a dairy farm is an advantage, they say that they've seen very good people come in over the years who maybe don't have experience working on a dairy farm, but who have a lot of interest in the role. So for them, someone with a passion and interest for their business and what they're doing is the most important thing. And Fullwood Paco is also looking for dealers to take on their products throughout the country. So we have more details about everything we've just discussed in the career section of Country Living in this week's Farmers Journal.
Thank you, Mary, for telling us about the jobs.
No worries, Áine.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Since a devastating earthquake hit Nepal 1 year ago, local people have been struggling to rebuild their homes and their farms. Aisling Hussey travelled to Nepal with the support of the Simon Cumbers Media Fund to report on the situation in the Nepalese countryside.
I'm here in Nepal with Patrick Donohoe. He is a journalist with the Annapurna Post, which is a leading national daily newspaper in Nepal. He's reported extensively on the effect of the earthquake in Nepal, as well as development and climate change. So, Patrick, can you tell me a little bit about farming in Nepal? What's a typical farmer?
There are different types of the farmers we have in Nepal, but the typical farmers are especially, they have very small land and they have doing the farming in a very much traditional way, and even they don't have that much idea on technology, and even they don't have any idea about the new seeds and what is happening in terms of research on agriculture. So they are doing very much traditionals, and even they don't know about the price of the market and access of the market. So they don't just produce their crops, produce their grain, and just they sell around the market. That is the farmers who have very much.
So, like yesterday now, I saw a field being ploughed by an ox. Is that typical of most farmers in Nepal?
Yeah, exactly. Most of the farmers are using ox to plow the field because we don't have the technology still in the field. So farmers are using traditional kind of methods for the agriculture. So very few of the farmers now, they have access of the modern technology like hand tractors and other technology. But most of the farmers are using that, as you saw in the field, that kind of technology is using since a long time.
So can you tell me how the earthquake impacted farmers? It's been 1 year now since it hit Nepal.
Yeah, the earthquake, the devastating earthquake heavily impact with the farmers because Nepal is an agriculture-based country, and even now we have around 70% people are dependent on the agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And the last year when the earthquake happens, more than 95% farmers were affected at the earthquake because it hits in the rural area, and all the people now is depending on the agriculture. So it's very much bad for them, and economically it's a very negative impact for Nepal. There is a very big question of food security because all the water resources is depleted. Even they don't have good production of the crops. So still, they don't have sufficient food to store on their house. So it's a big problem and a big challenge for the farmers. Even they loses the crops, seeds, livestock, and even the houses. So still, they have so many farmers have the loan with the bank. So even there is a big challenge to them how to pay the loan.
The place we visited yesterday, the district, 95% of homes had been destroyed there.
The local people, especially the farmers, were demanding to build the house. Is that their first priority? And then only they wanted to do other recovery things. But they have some questions, and still they have some dissatisfaction with the government. Previously, government has announced that we will support to build the house, and then the local farmers who are very poor, they don't have money, and still they are waiting that the government will some support to build the houses, but they are not getting yet. That's why they are a little bit angry. That's why the government is saying that their first priority is to build the house, but still the farmers are not getting benefits. That's why still there is some confusion.
So obviously climate change is a really big issue in Nepal as well.
We are the most vulnerable country around the world in terms of the climate change. Latest report says that Nepal is the 4th ranking in terms of the vulnerability in the world. Mm-hmm. And even the farmers are saying and complaining all the time that they are losing their water resources, and they are facing with the new disease in their crops, and even the productivity and the production of the crops is down, and they're decreasing their production.
And what kind of situation will farmers be in then if climate change isn't really tackled?
As a farmer say that they are tackling themselves to increase their productions and to increase their productivity.
So in your own kind of view, what's the future of farming in Nepal?
The future is bright, but the problem is we are very much remote country, we are the least developed country. We don't have the access of roads, we don't have the access of market that much good. So around 50% of the all the agricultural productions were importing from India. That's why we can say that if we do the better agriculture, then there is a chance, because 50% crops and the things, livestock, meat product and dairy product even is coming from India. That's why there are lots of the chances.
Well, thanks very much for talking to me anyway.
I also spoke to Saralta Chulanhar, who lives in a 15 by 10 shelter just outside Kathmandu with her parents and 2 sisters.
What is it like for farmers after the earthquake?
We feel like we are nothing. We have nothing remains after that earthquake, and we cry a lot. And in that time, my father and mother, they are not in front of us. Mm-hmm. They are he's going he's in his own business, and he's going in our own, and we only 3 sisters staying on the home.
Did you think that you would be living in the shelter for the year?
No, I don't think so. We don't have other choice.
Would you expect to live in your home again?
Yeah, of course. We want to build a strong home, but it's not possible right now.
What is it like living here during the winter?
It's too bad. In the winter, in a windy time, my house unbelievable.
And with the monsoon season coming up as well, would you be worried about how the shelter will survive it?
We will try to live safely.
Yeah.
We don't have other choice.
So are you hopeful for the future?
Of course I do, but I want to be a teacher, but not possible to be a teacher.
And why is that?
Yet I'm working at Dish Media Company, and so it's going on. I don't have. After I complete my bachelor, I maybe join a master. Then after I will teach.
And will you stay in Nepal, or would you leave?
No, I don't want to go other countries. I want to be here. Recently, our government trying to rebuild our village and our country. Mm-hmm. So I'm satisfied on that. He will do some kind of good things in our village or our country maybe.
Are you happy with how the government responded?
Yes, but the thing is, government is doing from their side, but we don't get any good response right now, because it maybe take time. Maybe we are hoping for a good response from them.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.